In the book of Philippians and chapter 1, we see a great verse, and that verse is Philippians chapter 1 and verse 21. And the Bible says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." Here we find the Apostle Paul as he writes under the inspiration of God. He's writing to the church, the saints at Philippi, and he makes a personal declaration. He has shared with you and I his lifelong decision. He says, "For me to live is Christ." He makes it very clear that he is living unto the will of God. He has somewhat laid aside his plan, laid aside his will, laid aside his agenda, and he has united his heart with the heartbeat of God. And he says that as for me, I'm going to live for the Lord. He says you can do what you want to do, if you will. But me and my house, I'm going to serve the Lord. Beloved, I submit unto you that that is the best thing going. And you know, it takes time to understand that. It takes time to live and to discover that our plan, although it may be great, our plan, although it may be wonderful, yet our plan is not as good as God's plan. And so Paul, he came to that place in his life where he became convinced that God's will is the best thing. In another verse in Galatians chapter 2 and verse 20, he says, "I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life that I now live, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and who gave himself for me." He was grateful and appreciative of the goodness of God. In another verse in Romans chapter 12 verse 1, he says, "I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your body a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto the will of God." He spoke in that verse, making an argument based on the platform of the mercy of God, that God has been merciful. If we were to define the term, mercy means God did not give me what I deserve. I deserve his wrath, but instead God gave me what I do not deserve, which is grace. And so he says, "For me to live is Christ." I urge you, may that be your testimony, may that be my testimony, not just when the chips are down, but all the days of our life. Not just when we are doing well, but all the days of our life, that for God I'll live, and for God I die. And that's the second part of the verse. He says, "And to die is gain." For the believer, death is wonderful. Understand that heaven is not only better than hell, heaven is better than earth. And for the believer who has gone home to be with the Lord, that believer is not complaining, but instead they have experienced a gain. And there's much to say about that. Let me urge you to make a decision to live for the Lord. May God's will be done in all of our lives.